Think about a time in your life when you were the most creative or made some of your best decisions. Was it a time when you had total open opportunities, an open canvas, or were you narrowly focused? Paradoxically, the best creativity in business decisions always come from narrow constraints. And we're going to talk about the most important constraint that you can put on your business, and that is customer profiling, making decisions based on your customers. In this video, I'm going to show you what customer profiling is, the 4 laws to make customer profiling actionable and profitable. We're going to talk about the 3 things people typically get wrong, and I am going to give you a 5-step bulletproof process for building customer profiles that help you make the best and most inspired marketing, location, and retail decisions. So I've been doing customer profiling since 2012 when I did the brand segmentation for companies like Gillette, the Home Depot, and Lacoste, and a number of other companies where I did this by hand. And now we've done this for thousands of companies for our software business. And I can tell you without a doubt, building a powerful customer profile around your top customer segments is the most aligning, focusing, and empowering thing that you can do for your business. At the end of this video, you're going to have this 5-step process that you can use for your brand or any brand that you work with in the future. So without further ado, let's get into it. Customer profiling is a process of mathematically grouping up customers based on similar and actionable characteristics. This usually looks like anywhere from 3 to 10 target customer profiles, and they are at their best when they follow the 4 laws of actionable customer profiling. Law number 1 is it needs to be quantifiable. It needs to be quantifiable internally by every single person in your CRM or point of sale system needs to fall into one of these customer profiles, and you need to know how much that specific profile spends on average. It needs to be quantifiable externally by every single person in your market needs to fall into one of these profiles. And you, again, need to know how much those people spend on average. Number 2 is these customer profiles need to be targetable. You need to be able to find them outside of your own customer base on social media, direct mail, anywhere where you're doing advertising so that you can get the right offer to the right audience that resonates. Number 3 is they need to be mappable. This is especially important for retail brands that are making growth and location decisions. You need to be able to find these people on a map, plot them on the map, and know how many people are in your trade area. This helps if you're opening up a new location or if you are putting a billboard there, for example. And then lastly, these profiles need to be distinct. There needs to be legitimate differences in either their motivation for buying your product or in their lifestyle in general. Otherwise, you might as well just group these up because they're not worth creating a unique message for. So having a complete customer profile that's quantifiable, targetable, mappable, and distinct makes total sense, right? Why don't more companies do this? There are 3 challenges that get in the way of building a really powerful customer profile. Challenge number 1 is relying on gut instincts instead of data at the beginning. Now, I have no problem with gut instincts and intuition, but there's a place when you would use it, and it's usually middle to the end of the process. The problem with using it in the beginning is if you're coming up with this customer profile of your mind, it lives in qualitative information in your mind. It is not applicable. You can't apply it to every single person in your CRM. You can't apply it to your CRM. You can then apply it to people that are outside your CRM, and it makes the segmentation unactionable when acquiring new customers. So it needs to start as a science, and then the art can come along. Can't start as an art and then move into a science. Number 2 is not knowing what data to use at first and then where to go get it. So I can tell you right now, the data that you need to start with is your point of sale system or your CRM system, your current customer data, specifically the products that they buy or how much they're spending on your brand. And then I would recommend probably looking into demographic data as enriching your current customer set. Why am I suggesting demographic data? The reason is because every single person has demographic data in your CRM, And then you can look at that across your profiles. Then once you have that, every person that are outside of your CRM also has demographic data. And that becomes a common language that you can then go use if you're talking to a direct mail provider or if you're talking to any of the social platforms. Okay, and then number 3, this is probably the most important thing that everybody gets wrong, is sequencing. Sequencing equals success in customer profiling. There are times for doing online research, qualitative interviews, surveys, quantitative research, but these need to be done in sequence because they all build on each other. It's kind of like when you're building a IKEA chair. If you were to build on step 6 first and then work backwards, you're going to end up falling through that chair. So it needs to be done in the right sequence. And I will show you that sequence in these next 5 steps. Besides the benefits of higher focus and inspiration for your team, there's 3 quantitative benefits that customer profiling will give. One is you're going to have higher performing campaigns and you're going to experience a lower cost per acquisition because you're targeting less people, only the profiles that really matter to you, and you are targeting the right offer to the right audience, because for each customer profile, we'll know the motivations, the triggers, and the lifestyle of each that we can conclude in our offer. The second benefit is better location decisions. Because we know how many of those people live in a trade area, we're going to be able to better forecast how much they spend based on the lifetime value on average for that customer, how many of those people in the trade area, and then the likely conversion amount. The third benefit that you're going to see is a higher customer LTV, because we'll know for each customer profile what is the next best product to recommend to keep that engagement strong. Just a really good case study here for using customer profiling. There's a company called SeaQuest. They're an aquarium company that have 14 locations throughout the United States, and they started to see a drop in sales. So they wanted to take a deeper look into their customer profiles. They historically had imagined, okay, our best segments are going to be moms, and that is totally understandable. So that is the kind of persona or profile that they had in their mind about their customers. But what they did is they took all their ticket sales and then they looked at how much those people were spending and specifically did a demographic enrichment in that. And what they found is that, yes, moms sure are a big part of their customer profile, but they had another customer segment that was really meaningful, and that was singles, young professional singles. So they had an idea to come up with SeaQuest Duo, which was a date night specific package. And then they marketed that specifically on Facebook to singles, and it became their #1 bestseller overnight. The reason I like this is because it is a simple example of an insight that you can get from a customer profiling activity that delivers massive rewards to the business. So what is the correct sequence for building powerful customer profiles? 5-step process. Number 1, quantitative grouping within your CRM or point of sale system. 2, your layer on qualitative interviews for each of those quantitative groups. Then you'll do surveys on each of those built on the insights that you got from your qualitative interviews. And then you'll do digital research based on the topics that you generated from your insights so far. Finally, you'll operationalize your customer profiles. So let's start with number 1, quantitative grouping. This will start with your point of sale or your CRM system, and you will want to group them up based on similar characteristics. I'm going to give you 5 different approaches to this. Depending on the characteristics of your brand, you might want to use one or a combination of these. Number 1 is RFM analysis: recency, frequency, monetary. Recency is how recent have they come to our website or brand. 2 is how frequently do they come over a 12-month period. And then 3, monetary, is how much do they spend with us over a 12-month period. I like this because it gives us the value of those customers. What it lacks, though, is capability of targeting outside of our own customer set, because this is not going to be a common language that you can use with different advertising platforms. Second is product profiling. So this is looking at your customers based on the first product that they bought. How valuable did they become? Did they become more valuable if they bought shirts or pants first? Third is time cohorts. I like this if you run a lot of deals with your company. Depending on the campaign that they came in, how valuable did they become? The next 2 I really like because they're both approaches that you can use this language outside of your own customer profile. The first is geographic profiling. This is looking at, it could be the state that they bought in, but it could also be urban, rural, and suburban. For example, if you're Home Depot, this would probably be a really important variable to include. And then lastly, demographic profiling. This is using age, gender, marital status, income. Now, you might not have all these things, but you definitely have gender because you have your first name and last name. Age is pretty easy to get, and we can talk a little bit about that later. The reason I like the last two, again, you can use demographics. It's a trading language. You can find people that are high income or people that are middle aged, for example. So my personal favorite is using a combination of spend and demographics. And I'm going to give you an example of a 3-point customer profiling that uses a combination of spend, their age, and their gender. So think of an XY axis for, let's say, an apparel brand. On the X axis is age, young to old. On the Y axis is how much they spent, low spenders to high spenders. If you put that into quadrants, you're going to immediately have 4 different customer profiles to look at that are going to be pretty valuable to you. You're going to have young high spenders, young low spenders, older high spenders, and older low spenders. And then you can group up how many customers that you have in each one of those quadrants. Finally, you apply gender to this, and you get that based on inferred first name and last name. If it's John Smith, it's probably a male. And then what you can do with that is you can split that group of 4 up into a group of 8 and then begin analyzing which is our most valuable. Are males that are young and spend the most? What kind of characteristics do they have? And this builds a foundation, a quantitative foundation that we can then begin to create smarter questions in our qualitative and survey interviews to then begin to develop a fuller picture of each of these audience profiles. And just a comment on demographic enrichment. If you don't have things like age or income, you can just Google demographic enrichment and you can find a number of providers that will append demographic data to your customer list for a really reasonable price. We at Spatial.ai will also do that. Okay, so let's get into step 2, layer on qualitative interviews. What's nice about the quantitative part is every single customer in your database should be labeled with your 3 to 10 customer profiles. And now we can do qualitative interviews to inform how we might understand and ask better questions of each of those individual customer profiles. So I recommend reaching out to these people and doing a qualitative interview. And I like to see 3 to 5 people in each one of these cohorts. So if you have 5 customer profiles, I like to see 25 total interviews. It's really good to record these. And you want to ask questions in 3 different buckets. I'll just say 4 buckets. Number 1 is motivation questions. What were the alternatives that they were considering? Number 2 is trigger questions. What was the moment that made them choose to buy the brand? 3 is lifestyle questions, where they're getting in their information, what are their hobbies, etc. And then 4th is brand specific questions that you just want to add a little bit more color around. So bonus points for you here if you can get people that recently started buying from you or recently stopped buying from you, because it's really going to help with the recency for each of these motivation and trigger questions. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about these questions. We have a link below that will get you to an article that has stock questions for each of these. I'm getting a lot of the motivation trigger questions from the Clayton Christensen Jobs to Be Done format. But ultimately, what we will get at the end of this is for each one of our customer profiles, a list of motivations, triggers, lifestyles, and brand specific insights. And then we want to step back for a moment and look at all of our customer profiles and say, is the information that we're receiving from these profiles distinct? If you have 2 profiles that are pretty close to being the same, you might want to consider collapsing them into one group just for simplicity at this point if they're not showing any different characteristics. Because remember, our customer profiles need to be distinct. And that takes us now to step 3, which is layering surveys. Okay, from our qualitative interviews, we just got a whole lot smarter about what types of questions that we would like to ask. So write down a few that are top of mind for you, and we'll take that into number 3, which is quantitative survey interviews of our customer profiles. These are questions that we want to validate hunches and even questions that we'd want to use to take into actually operationalize our marketing. I'm going to give you a few buckets to ask questions in and give you a sense of why it's good to have survey type insights on these questions. Bucket number 1 is psychographics. You want to ask some psychographic questions about your customers because you want to know what types of copy and imagery that needs to show up in the ads that we're trying to give an offer to those people. So I'll give you an example of a psychographic survey. Rank your priorities from least to most important: family, social life, work time, alone time, for example. Media consumption is another bucket of questions that I like to see. So this gives you a sense quantitatively of, for each of our customer profiles, what are the right channels that we need to target them on. So a question could be here: how much time do you spend on social media per day? What networks? Another is shopping attitudes and behaviors. What we're looking for is proxy brands that they might use us as a comparable, or different things that they value in other brands, so that we can bring those types of value propositions to the front for those people. So, for example, what are some of your favorite online retailers? You might want to list a few that you found in research. What are the most important quality things about a brand? List a few things that you feel are relevant. And then you want to look at brand perception questions, like how did you find us? How does our brand make you feel? Which words would you use to describe our brand? List a group of words that you found in your qualitative research. Again, you can use this to specifically communicate about your brand to the right offer to the right audience. And then finally, consumer habits. Where are you getting your information about products or services? And then list a few things that you heard in your qualitative research here: social media, influencers, news, television, etc. And that is going to give you a good sense quantitatively about how to reach these people with the right message and the right offer and the right language for that specific customer profile. Okay, step number 4 is layering on digital research. A lot of people go immediately to this step and they're clueless about the actual types of topics they should be researching. But now we've built up a bank of topics that are meaningful. And that's really how digital research primarily works, is you're going to look at a topic and go a lot deeper. I'm going to give you 7 different digital research tools that you can use to get a lot more color and a lot more freshness to each of your customer profiles. So tool number 1, Google Trends. So you just type in whatever topic that came up in your qualitative interviews is relevant to your particular customer profiles. And what you want to look at is not only the results and trends around that topic, but you want to look at related queries. So other things that people are asking about that specific topic. Number 2 is looking at TikTok and Instagram creators around your specific niche or your specific topic within that niche that's important to your customer profiles, and you're going to see trends around that. Number 3, this is kind of a secret, is Amazon reviews on your product category. If you go through this, you're going to see the things that people absolutely hate about your product category and things that your customers or other people's customers love about that category. Number 4 is keyword tools like Ubersuggest and SEMrush. Really maps out how the competition is thinking about that category. 5 is just Google Analytics, looking at the people that are visiting your website. 6, this is a really cool tool, SparkToro. So you can put in a topic and you can see other things that people are researching who also research that particular topic that you're interested in. And number 7, this is our company, Persona Live. It's a full stack segmentation solution that takes your CRM and attaches retail, psychographic, spend, mobile, and social behaviors to that. So it essentially does steps 1 through 5 immediately for you in under 30 minutes. So of course, I love that tool. Let's give you a little example here of when digital research becomes necessary and very interesting. I was doing a very different research project in Russia for a perfume company, and they were researching point of market entry consumers, POMI consumers, kids that are male specifically, 18 to 21 years old, and how they want to be perceived by the opposite sex when it comes to their scent. And what we discovered is this trend around each one of those consumers were really interested in M&M. It became sort of a theme. And then we started researching trends around that. Now, this is somewhere around 2014. But the theme became rebels rising from the ashes, and that played out a really important message for that particular consumer group. But we would not have been able to research that nearly as well had we not done the pre-work of understanding the topics that were relevant for that specific customer profile. Okay, step number 5, which is building and operationalizing these customer profiles. If you got here, you have a ton of qualitative and quantitative insights uniquely about each one of your customer profiles. Now is the fun part where we are bringing it all together to give inspiring one-pagers on these segments and then operationalizing that information and actually targeting these groups with the right messages. So let's start by getting all your designers together, and I'm going to give you a template for how to put together a customer profile based on the insights that you've already built up. So think about a one pager. On the top of that one pager, you need an inspiring image of that segment and the name of the segment. You can come up with one of these names that's very memorable for your company. And then a 1 or 2 sentence description should be right underneath that name. And then key trait number 1, key trait number 2, key trait number 3. These are the 3 things that they need to remember about that specific trait segment. It could be demographics, it could be their interest. Okay, the one below that, you want to put the quantifiable hard metrics that is going to get your finance team salivating. So you want to include age and income because people can really relate to that. They get it. They're used to it. And then you want to put their products purchased and the lifetime value of that. Now, again, these top 4, they generally need to be averaged, and the products purchased could be like the top 3 products they purchased from you. Especially the lifetime value is going to get your finance and your CMO team thinking about how valuable a particular segment is, and it's going to get them aligned on targeting that segment. Below that, this is now for the designers and the marketing. Also for the CFOs as well, although they won't admit it, is getting some lifestyle imagery about that specific segment. This could come from the psychographic research that you did, could come from the shopping habits research that you did. You just want to show what are these people's lives outside of our product. Okay, now directly below that, you need some text that shows the key motivations for that specific segment and the key triggers that make them buy. And that comes from your qualitative research around motivation and triggers. Below that is where it gets really brass tacks on how to reach these people. You need the key marketing channels. So is it social? Is it TikTok? Is it Facebook? Is it direct mail? The key messages we need to deliver to that segment that is related to our relationship with their triggers and their motivations, their media consumption preferences, and their shopping attitudes. And then below that, we can now layer on our digital research like product reviews, word cloud, some influencer insight, digital trends, and website interest. And all that together is going to give you a powerful customer profile that will absolutely focus your team and help them understand the value of each one of these customer profiles and cohorts. Okay, so lastly, we need to operationalize this. And we're going to talk about operationalizing this information in the format of our 4 laws for customer profiling. So remember, these folks need to be targetable. And the way that we can do that now is because of age and income of these people and their interests, we can go onto Meta, for example, and we might find that, okay, high income Gen Xers that are interested from our qualitative research in farm to table food and high-end craft coffee are our best cohort for our high-end leather bags, for example. So you just type in those 3 interests, and then you're going to get a very specific cohort that is uniquely going to be focused on that specific customer profile. So they're targetable. 2 is they need to be mappable. You need to be able to find how many of these people actually exist in your trade area. So you can go high level and use something like Esri's business analyst online, or you can even just use the census and look in that county or that zip code and see how many people are high income and are Gen X age. And then third, these need to be quantifiable. You're going to take the population that falls into your ideal customer profile in that trade area, and then see how much those people spend on average. So if they're spending $240 on average lifetime value with your brand, then you can take that times the population in the area and some hypothetical conversion rate that is based on some data you have in the past. And then you have the value for each one of these market areas. Lastly, remember you need to make sure that these are distinct. So you should be reaching out with unique messages for each of these profiles. We see easily 14% higher open rates, 50% higher conversion rates on any copy and imagery that is designed for that specific segment. So that's how you build and operationalize a customer profile. I think everybody intuitively knows that a deep understanding of your customers is the foundation for a successful business and successful business decisions. But a lot of people just don't know the sequence to do customer profiling. And at the end of this, like I said, you've got a complete tool set for how to do customer profiling and do the right sequence and do it right. But we haven't talked about the main benefit of customer profiling. It's not one that people touch on often, but it's actually the one that is the most powerful. After doing hundreds of these manually and doing them with the teams in person, with brand managers, performance marketers, researchers, finance people even, the most powerful thing that usually comes out of this is you begin to see that your customers are actual humans and that humans are absolutely incredible. And when you start to believe that at 100%, the things that you develop for those people are filled with soul. They're filled with insight, and it makes you super excited to do your job. So that's the last thing that I'm going to leave you with. Take that customer insight and go make a dent in the world. If you're interested in learning more about customer profiling, or if you're interested in speeding up the process, you can click the link below and take a look at Persona Live. We build these customer profiles from a software perspective. You can go from knowing nothing about your customers to under 30 minutes having a fully ranked customer profile that is targetable. Because we're capturing data from retail transactions, social media, their demographic information, and where their mobile devices visit, and we can attach that immediately to that and then make those targetable audiences. So if that sounds interesting to you, I will see you on the other side.